Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in. Are you ready for another conversation? I hope you are. Today, I get to sit down and chat with my name twin, Chelsey Erickson. I'm so excited to talk to her. She has a wide array of experience in multiple sectors, in different types of positions, and she is so candid and real about the experiences that she went through when she discovered that her environment was toxic. And she shares a powerful message for people who are currently working in toxic work environments. Let me tell you a little bit more about Chelsey Erickson. She has nearly 30 years of customer service experience, ranging from retail to health insurance to the government sector. Her experience spans in person, face to face call centers. And when she's not working, she enjoys time with her husband and pets that include 4 cats and 3 dogs, or working on a variety of hobbies. You are going to really enjoy this conversation. Please make sure to leave a comment below with what you took away from it. All right, get ready for it. Today, I am joined by my name twin, Chelsey Erickson. We have been connected on LinkedIn for a while, and whenever I put this out in the universe that I wanted to do a series, she agreed to be a part of it. So, Chelsey, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and share your experience and chat with me today.
Well, thank you for having this opportunity to do so. It's good to talk to somebody else about what you're going through instead of coworkers or family members. So it's good to get it out there and say that this isn't anything to be ashamed of, and it occurs more often than people realize.
Absolutely. And we both strongly believe in that. And I just want to have you expand on that a little bit more and share why you decided to come forward and share your experience with everyone.
I in my current work environment, and that's where there's some toxicness going on. Um, there's a lot of fear that people don't want to talk about it. The things are going on, and people don't want to talk about it. In my department, there's several divisions, and there's stuff going on in all of the divisions, but
Mhm.
nobody wants to talk to each other. So if you don't talk to your coworkers about what's going on, you're a lone
Mhm.
ship in a vast sea, and it can be
Yes.
very, very lonely sometimes. um,
Mhm.
that and I don't Some of the younger generation is
Mhm.
getting to the point where I never was at that age, where I had been in toxic work environments in my 20s and didn't I thought that was just the way that it was supposed to be. And because no one ever told me otherwise. Now that
Right.
I've gotten older, a little bit of age and wisdom under my belt, I want to share those experiences and let people know that it happens out there, and it happens more often than what people actually realize. And it's not anything to be
Oh,
ashamed of because it's not your fault. And I think that's where a
exactly.
lot of the stigma is if people think that, oh, you talk to somebody about it, well, and then that person may say, are you sure you remembered it that way? Are you sure that really happened? And although that, and then
Mm.
they'll gaslight you in a subtle way. Oh no, that couldn't have
Right.
happened. That's not my experience. And I'm here to tell everybody that even if you're the only one, it's still a toxic work environment, even if nobody else shares that
Yes.
same experience. Um, and for the longest time, I thought it was just me. And I've talked to a couple
Mm.
other coworkers, and now I'm like, oh, it is not me in my work environment. So yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to share with people to just nothing to be ashamed of. It's not your fault.
Absolutely. And you hit on so many things there. And I want to go back because, it looks like there's been a lot of transformational growth with your mindset and being able to recognize some of those red flags and toxic behaviors. So when you were in your 20s, can you recall any behaviors that you overlooked at the time and just chalked it up to, oh, that's the way that it is?
Yes, I worked my start was in retail. So anybody who worked retail or food service knows how toxic those environments can end up being. And
Mhm.
I had a district manager that loved to micromanage everybody. Like she had to know everything. The store manager had to call in at the end of the day. What did you do? How did you do it? And I just thought that was the way, I'm in my mid 20s.
Oh,
I just thought that was the way it was. When I was slightly
mhm.
younger, I had a I was in a department, and my
Mm.
manager of the department actually had, now that I look back at it and reflect
Mhm.
it, there was some jealousy because I was a very hard worker, and I was very
Mhm.
good at what I did. I worked in a men's department. So I would sell men's suit, and I was very good at it. And
Mhm.
there was some things and some underhanded comments and some things that had gone on, and I'm like, I didn't think anything
Oh.
of it at the time, but now looking back,
Mhm.
yeah, that's when you've got a manager that's kind of jealous of you and your ability and doesn't want
Right.
you to shine, that's toxic. But
Absolutely.
I didn't know that at the time.
And at what point did you realize, "Oh, these are toxic behaviors?"
Honestly, just recently. Probably
Really?
yes, just recently.
Oh.
I'm a little late to the self-awareness and self growth of things, but
Mhm.
my dad passed away back in 2017, and
Oh,
some
I'm
things
sorry.
started. Thank you. Some of those things that my dad had been very dedicated to his job, and then it's just some of
Mhm.
those things like he was replaced really quickly, and
Mhm.
people, it was, oh, we need to replace him, we need to replace him. And
Mhm.
it's when it's amazing what happens when a family member dies. You have a shift in how you see the
Yes.
world and how you perceive the world, and that was the start of my awakening, because I had an
Mm.
incident just a couple months before he died where
Mhm.
I had been an overachiever while he was sick. So I was trying to do everything. I was like, oh, I was doing a lot of work at work, going above and beyond,
Yeah.
saying I can take care of my sick family and still do my job. But
Mhm.
then I get pulled into my director's office and kind of get yelled at for doing that because of my, oh, you're not doing the priorities right. Well, these were the priorities. And that,
Right.
so that coupled with my dad's death, just a few weeks after that, I'm like, wait a minute, something's
Mhm.
not right. And then when the
Exactly.
pandemic hit, that's when it really started kicking in the high gear. Um,
Mm.
because I was considered essential. My department with how I work
Mhm.
was considered essential. And there
Mhm.
were some things that's like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. This seems a little toxic.
Oh.
I had at the same time got onto TikTok and somehow found
Okay.
therapy TikTok. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, it's as people talk, some things resonate and then other things didn't. And I'm like, oh, the things that are
Yes.
resonating, I'm like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
so these are toxic environments. And that's kind of how my growth into it has occurred. Like I said, I'm very,
Oh.
very recent to the
Mhm.
game of seeing those red flags.
And you know what? It's never too late. And that goes to show you that's why having these conversations are so important because there's other Chelseas out there who are in environments and don't realize it until they hear these examples and they
Exactly.
see people speak out and it's like, "Oh no, this is actually really toxic and unhealthy for my mental and
Yes,
emotional health."
it is. And I don't think, and I see it on LinkedIn, especially on your
Yes.
post. And you seem to be really the only one that I have connected, and things that people that I'm
Mhm.
following and stuff like that, that really talks openly and actively about toxic work environments. But the other thing
Mhm.
that I don't think a lot of people are really latching onto is there's subtle things, those subtle red flags that most people don't think of. For me,
Yes.
it's I've had an experience with a micromanager. So I've had one end of the spectrum, but I don't think people
Mhm.
realize the other end of the spectrum where you have a manager that is completely hands off and not giving the guidance that they should be giving. And so
Right?
your micromanager breeds resentment.
Yes.
Your hands off manager breeds
Mhm.
failure because
They set
you
you
up.
up.
They're setting you up for failure because they're not giving
Yes.
that feedback. And I'm like,
Exactly.
that's because I've had a few managers over the course of since 2019. And it's like, it
Mhm.
seems like everybody has been getting a little more hand. Now, granted, their workload gets higher and higher because, they're supervisors and directors. And I understand that. But you gotta,
Right.
as that person in charge, you gotta find that balance. You can't be one extreme or the other because both of them are toxic. And I don't think
Absolutely.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that other end of the spectrum is just as toxic as the micromanager.
Exactly. And I'm curious, during the time where you really didn't know that the environment was toxic, did anything happen with your mental or emotional health, or were you just kind of coasting through?
I don't think I really paid attention because I was so
Mm,
prior to realizing, and it's just recently things have gotten a lot more toxic.
okay.
Prior to, I'd say 2019, things were
Mhm,
pretty okay. I do my job, I do it
mhm,
fairly well.
mhm,
And I'd go home. It was just in these recent changes, the pandemic,
mhm.
new corp corp I'd say corporate
Yeah.
leadership has changed things, and things have just, and I truly believe that the CEO sets the tone, whether it's a
Yes.
CEO or, when you're, in a nonprofit, the executive director.
Mhm.
If you're in government, it's, the county executive or the secretary of that division or whatever. So those people are your CEOs. They set the tone.
Right.
And when you get a new one coming in, if the tone is not the right tone, it does breed toxic traits within the whole organization. I've seen instances of inequities on how policies are done between divisions. Like one
Mhm.
division doesn't have the same hardcore stances that the other division has on the same exact policy. And
Right.
that's toxic too, because you're not being fair or equitable across the board. Um, and
There's so many
that
examples of toxic, isn't
there
there?
is there is, and it's, you have to really sit and think, is this a red flag? If I was a business owner, would I do this? And if you
Right.
wouldn't do that, then it probably is going to be a toxic trait or a toxic issue that's going on.
Exactly.
How you treat your employees, that's another thing. If you're stark and stern with them, and you don't
Mhm.
understand their emotional issues that they have. We're coming out of a 3-year pandemic. A lot of people have
Right.
mental health issues, and if
Exactly.
you can't sympathize and empathize with them a little bit and work with them to get them help or lighten their workload or any of those things, you're a toxic manager. But there's no other
Right.
way to say it.
You know what, Chelsea? There's one other thing that I want to call out too, because at the time where you didn't know it was toxic, you were just kind of coasting through, dealing with it, doing your work. I want to call that out just simply because for those people who are listening and watching, I don't want them to get so used to that environment that they just accept it and they're just
Yeah.
navigating through, because that behavior can also rub off on you as well without you
Yes.
even knowing, because it's
Yes.
your environment. And I remember I was in just a dysfunctional environment before. I remember I had a friend there and she said, "Don't take that anywhere. Don't take that behavior anywhere else." So I
Yes.
do want people to recognize that you don't want to build up that wall and that endurance that toxic becomes your new normal.
Exactly. Because it does. It's whatever goes on at work, you are taking home with you, whether you wanted to or not. Some days I'm really good at checking it at the door. Other days, not so well. It's, I don't mind the work per se. I've gotten a little stagnant. I've been doing the same thing
Mhm,
for 10 years, so I'm ready to
mhm.
spread my wings anyways, see what's out
Right.
there. But some days it's harder than others to just check it at the door. And
Yes.
you have to be very self-aware. If you,
Mhm,
like I am, I have to kind of stay in the environment because I need the
mhm.
paycheck, I need the bills, I
Right.
need the health insurance, but I know, okay, I am going to eventually get out of here. I need to be able to check this at the door as often and as frequently as I can, so I'm not bringing it home into my marriage, into my, my relationship with my mom that lives with us, my
Right.
pets, because your pets and your pets and your kids pick up on those
They can feel it.
vibes. Yes, I'm very much a vibe
Absolutely.
person. If something's not vibing right with you,
Yes.
follow that vibe, follow that gut feeling. And I've tried to follow my gut feelings in
Mhm,
life, but like I
mhm.
said, I liked what I was doing. I liked the people I was working with. It didn't seem toxic to me prior to now.
Right.
So but as things change, the vibe changes, and you have to trust your instincts to pick up
Mhm.
on that, so you know what's going on. So you don't take that behavior with you to the
Mhm.
next place or bring it home with you, because
Exactly.
you don't want to bring that home either.
You
So
don't. You don't. But now I'm curious and I just have to ask, what are you doing to take care of yourself mentally and emotionally?
I I have 3 dogs. My We are empty nesters. My oldest will
Mhm.
actually be 30 next week.
Okay,
So
awesome.
I got just we just got a puppy. So like all my energy
Aw,
is into this 4-month-old puppy. Um
yes.
so that's kind of how I de-stress, is the puppy. Um but I do arts and crafts. I am a very crafty, very artsy person. I crochet, I paint, I make things. Um, I have a Cricut, I have a laser engraver. So I have hobbies that I've had, and I've gained hobbies. I also
Mhm.
like to read. I've gotten into this once I realized, oh, things are not jiving right. I started reading
Mhm.
some self improvement books, and that's kind of helped the self-awareness, and it's like, okay. And sometimes I'll read the trashy romance novels like every girl does. um,
Yeah.
but I try to find things to balance myself when I get home,
Mhm.
like, things that I enjoy, that
Yes.
is the most important thing. Spending time with my husband, we'll go shopping on the weekends, or we'll take the dogs and go somewhere, walk. I'm
Mhm.
fortunate that I live on Lake Erie, so it's
Mm.
beautiful. So I'm able to
Yes.
go to the lake anytime I want. We have beautiful bike path there. So there's a lot of things that I do. I'm actually looking at getting a therapist to help with
Oh,
some
good.
things,
Yes.
because I realized also that in this process of self awareness in my environment and
Mhm.
myself, I've been taking on a lot of people's issues and emotions. And I'm like, no, I can't do that
Yes.
anymore. So I have to
Exactly.
kind of check myself. So I'm doing things that work for me. Everybody's going to have a different way of coping with the stress, de stressing.
Right.
Find something that works for you and brings you joy. Because at the end of the day, the jobs come and go. The things
Oh,
that bring
all
you
the
joy,
time.
your family, those are always going to stay. And you want to keep those things healthy and happy.
Oh, that's so true. And you just gave a lot of great examples because people often think when you tell them do things that bring you joy, sometimes people don't even know what brings them joy. So I'm
Right.
glad that you gave those examples because that's a starting point.
Oh, there's so
And
many things. I have a
yes,
coworker who just recently retired that does yoga. I have a
look at
former
that.
co
Yeah.
I have a former coworker from another job I had, that she posts that she goes to yoga once a week, and I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
yoga's a start. Going out walking, communing with nature." I also love bird watching. I have a bird feeder. If you can, put up
Oh,
a bird feeder and watch the birds. It's the most calming thing in the world.
yes.
Even just going outside and sitting for 20 minutes, just being outside is such a calming, rejuvenating effect. Um,
It so is. I
you may
agree.
never get rid of, I mean, you may be in a stressful work environment now, but there are things that you
Mhm.
can do to calm that stress and hopefully not bring too much of it home.
Absolutely. And something else that I want to call out that you actually mentioned before I hit record was not tying your identity to your job. Can you talk a
Yes.
little bit more about that, please?
Ye- you are the sum of everything you do, but your work identity is not your entire identity. It took me a long time to get to that point, because I w- I was raised to take pride in your work.
Mhm.
Nothing wrong with taking pride in your work, but your work is not your entire life. You have a life outside of your work. I am a daughter, I am a sister,
Mhm.
I am a wife, I am a stepmom, I am a pet parent.
Mhm.
Those are things outside my job that actually define me way better than what my job does.
Yes.
You cannot tie your identity to your job. Because if you say, this is who I am, this is my job, that's all
Mhm.
people are going to remember you for. If you say, I'm
Right.
a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I have passions, I believe in this and I believe in that, and I tell people I'm crafty. I do crafts.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I introduce myself. I do have one blip
Yes.
that I use to when they ask me, well, what do you do for work? I kind of give them that blip
Mhm.
and that's it. That's
Mhm.
I don't go into detail as to exactly what I do because that
Right.
blip, everybody in the area knows what that blip is. So
Mhm.
that's it. That's how I describe my work identity is that little blip and that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I also want to highlight your next chapter. And as you move on to a healthier environment, I'm curious, are there specific questions that you're going to ask during the interview process? Or what are you looking for
Uh,
as you
th-
carry out your job search?
my my job search right now is looking for remote work
Mhm.
because being an essential worker during the pandemic, that was very stressful. My husband's at high risk. My mother is at extremely high risk because of her age and her medical conditions. So it was very
Mhm.
nerve wracking having to go to
Yeah.
work and worrying about bringing something home to them.
Right.
And just being home, I know I work better. Like
Mhm.
my job, I can, if I go out into the field, I can like do some work from home. I find that I am
Oh.
way more productive at home. um,
Mhm.
one, I
Mhm.
have a window at my in my office at home, and my window, my office is windowless at work. So that right there just
Yep.
is that's a drain on you right there if you don't have a window at your job. Um,
Mhm.
but I'm looking for specific culture things.
Okay.
Um, and it's hard to explain. I kind of know it when I
Mhm.
see it, when I read through the job, and then it
Okay.
helps because I researched the companies because
Okay.
I've started getting very selective of who I'm applying with. I'm
Good.
looking for customer service. I'm looking for specific
Mhm.
fields, but I'm also looking for
Mhm.
people who want to change the status quo of things. I'm very
Mm.
much liking a lot of these disruptors out there, especially in the health
Yes.
insurance field, tech
Mhm.
industry. Even though my experience isn't tech, my experience is customer service.
Mhm.
I like those disruptors because I think a
Yeah.
lot of systems need to be changed, and the status quo is what's hurting us in the long run. So I'll
Yes.
look through I'll go to their main page, and then if they have videos of employees talking, I'll watch those. So I like
Mm.
to watch the videos to say, what do they talk about? What do they feel important about? I go to their LinkedIn page. Who are they post? What are they reposting? What are they posting about?
Right.
Um, there's several people that I've on LinkedIn that I absolutely love because I love how they talk
Mhm.
about their culture and how they
Mm.
treat people, how they treat their employees. And that to me
Yes.
is the most important thing. If the CEO or the owner or the founder of the company talks about how they're treating their employees,
Mhm.
especially in those bios on their websites or in LinkedIn,
Yes.
that's a draw. So if it's a job that I hit most of the marks because I'm a
Mhm.
woman. We tend to
Right.
not we tend to not apply if we don't hit 100%.
Exactly.
I've
Mhm.
been getting better about that. So
Good
around
job.
70 to 75%. If I can hit most 75%, I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply for it. If my skills are transferable enough, I will apply for it and see what they say. Um, but it's the culture. For me, it's all about the culture. And even in the future, if it's a company that has laid off, well, how did they handle those layoffs? Because some of those layoffs
Right.
that they've been doing has been very, very toxic, and some have handled it very, very well. So
Right.
that how they're handling firings, how are they handling layoffs? How are they handling the bumps in the road? Are they perpetuating compassion and understanding? That's kind of
Yes.
where I want to be. And if I have to do my own thing and freelance, then so be it. Um, but I want to see what I can try to get out in the market right now.
Yes. And I know that you are going to land exactly where you are supposed to, and it will be healthier and safer and more engaging and everything that you want. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to continuing to hear about your journey in the future as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And you shared so many good tips throughout our talk today, but I'd love to know for the people who are currently working in toxic work environments, what do you want to say to them? Any final
You're
words?
you're not alone. There is more of us out there than you actually realize.
Mhm.
People are afraid to talk about it. It brings
Yes.
shame, and it's not something to be ashamed of. I My biggest thing is I told my director and my supervisor at the time a couple years back, I'm burned out. I flat out said,
Mhm.
I am burned out.
Mhm.
Well, something needs to change.
Yes.
We'll reevaluate in the fall because this was in the spring. We'll reevaluate in the fall. Fall came and went.
Mhm.
You are not alone.
So true.
The blame is not on us. Our burnout is not a result of us. The toxic behavior is not the result of us. So you're not alone. Don't be afraid to speak up, even if it's to a coworker that you think a coworker you know you can trust. Because it doesn't, even if it happens to you and nobody else, it's still toxic. And nobody can
Absolutely.
change that experience. No one can, don't let anybody gaslight you for that experience. Don't make anybody make you question the experience. Even
Mhm.
if it's just you, it's your experience and it's still toxic. Those are the biggest takeaways that I can give anybody out there.
And those were awesome takeaways. And for people who are watching and listening and they want to connect with you, how can they do that, Chelsea?
They can actually do that on LinkedIn. It is Chelsey M. Erickson is my handle on LinkedIn. Um, and I would be happy to connect with anybody. I am always looking for new connections. I have connections in my field, outside my field. Um, it's interesting to see. I've actually connected with a couple people that do AI, like the
Hmm.
chat GPT, and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And I'm like, I've actually used it to help me write papers and give me a starting point. So I'm a learner. I love to learn, so I love connecting with people. So yes, if you're looking to connect, I would be happy to.
Awesome. And I will make sure to leave Chelsea's contact information in the description section below. Chelsea, I want to thank you so much for being transparent, being real, and being bold and courageous and coming on and sharing your experience. I really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's great to have people that are willing to let those of us that are willing to talk and share the experience. I think if more of us talk about it, I'm not saying things will change, but maybe you won't feel so alone.
Absolutely. One step at a time, right?
Exactly. Baby steps.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsey.
Wow. Chelsea was amazing, wasn't she? I mean, the reflections that she gave and the insight into what she's looking for, what she's been through, and when she realized she was in a toxic work environment, I think there's always that pivotal moment in our careers where we realize, hey, this isn't working. And more than anything, I love that she brought out that you're not alone. When working in toxic work environments, so many professionals think that they are the only one. So I love that she placed a lot of emphasis on that, as well as not tying who you are to a job. You're so much more than that. I really hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please make sure to connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn, and I will leave her contact information in the description below. Make sure that you leave a comment and let us know what you took from the conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. All right, until next time.